Oh, for Buffalo Bills fans, you know what? I'm not sorry. Another season went by and you missed the playoffs. And even though a lot of Bills fans seem to want to operate under the scope of revisionist history, I tried to warn all of you about Rex Ryan, but you didn't want to listen. You believed all the media crap, and look what it got you. Two more wasted seasons of mediocrity and zero playoff appearances to show for it. Remember the Music City Miracle, the Nashville Nightmare? Yeah, you sure do. And you get reminded every year that that was the last time your team went to the playoffs. It was back when Wade Phillips was your head coach and Robo Sack was your starting quarterback. It was a long, long time ago. It was 18 years ago. I had just graduated high school a few months before. That's how long ago this shit is. So, yet again, here we are after a couple of failed seasons under Rex Ryan. Gee, imagine freaking that. The Pagula family had had enough, and they fired Doug Whaley. They sent Rex Ryan packing, got a new organizational leadership in terms of the front office. And now you got a new head coach coming in, the defensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers, Sean McDermott. And I will say this for the Buffalo Bills, as while I don't have huge expectations for them this year, I at least look at what has been done so far and I say, you know what? There is some type of plan. There is some type of vision here. Now, ultimately, is it going to matter? Because, as so often the case, vision is one thing, execution is what it comes down to. And that's really what it comes down to for this team. But you see the Buffalo Bills, and they're really in a rebuild as they go type of mode. They're not trying to totally tank, but they're not really good enough in my opinion. But they know that they need to reload significantly on both sides of the ball. But with some of the deals that they made, sending off Ronald Darby in one deal, sending off Sammy Watkins in a separate deal. Now you're talking about a team with the peel back from 10 to 27 in this year's NFL draft. This is a team that's got 2 first, 2 second, and 2 third round picks in the 2018 draft. So even if this season doesn't end well for Buffalo Bills fans in terms of it being another year that your team misses the playoffs, know that it could potentially get better and get better in a hurry. Potentially. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see how 2017 plays out first. Now, in terms of some of the big moves, when you look at some of the biggest subtractions, obviously the firing of Doug Whaley was big, and I think that was a positive. Getting rid of Rex Ryan, and in particular his 3-4 defense, which was kind of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole for the personnel that you had in place. I actually think all 3 of those moves are clearly, truly addition by subtraction. Trading away Ronald Darby and Sammy Watkins might seem like not the best way to go, but you had Sammy Watkins getting ready to enter a contract year, and what had he shown you to determine that he was going to be worth the number 1 wide receiver type of contract that the Bills might have potentially felt the pressure to pay him? Ronald Darby, again, yeah, it sucks to lose him. He was a guy that's a starting caliber, at least nickel corner in the league, if not a starting outside corner. But you to bring in Jordan Matthews and E.J. Gaines and to get the draft picks that you got to set yourself up in a position of power for 2018's draft, I think you could deal with that. I also agree with allowing Stephon Gilmore to walk even if he went to the New England Patriots, because ultimately, were you in a position where you needed to pay a guy like Stephon Gilmore big-time money? And the answer to me was simply no. I didn't feel like the timing was right for the Bills organization, and I just didn't think that it was necessary for them to do so, and they ultimately did. Now, looking back a few months previous to the NFL draft, once they traded back in round 1, they got Tre'Davious White, the corner from LSU, who you expect is going to be a day 1 starter for them. In round 2, they got Zay Jones, who people have been raving about. He's looked good at times for sure in the preseason, and it looks like he's going to be one of the starting options at wide receiver. So there's some hope that this year's draft class could pay some immediate dividends for this organization, and it's going to need to. In terms of the strength of this team, I think the strength of this team is the same it's been the past couple of years. Number 1, this team can really run the ball. With LaShawn McCoy and Tyrod Taylor, you're one of the best rushing teams in the National Football League. And with a defensive-minded head coach like a Sean McDermott, understanding what he had in Carolina, and they were built somewhat similarly, the running game is still going to be of a big precedent and a big importance for this organization and a very big key to their success, as is on the defensive side of the ball, their ability to get to the quarterback. And they need to be able to get to the quarterback, because I think their run defense is less than stellar, and it most certainly wasn't last year. Although, again, I think a switch in scheme could be the right recipe for an improvement. I don't know how big of an improvement, but that secondary, especially with the loss of Ronald Darby, yeah, you brought in E.J. Gaines, but that's a downgrade. I think that secondary, especially with the loss of Stephon Gilmore, it's taken a step back. So you're going to have to be able to get after the quarterback, because otherwise teams could potentially pick you apart on the ground, and in particular pick you apart in the secondary. And in terms of the running game with McCoy and Tyrod Taylor, one thing that's going to be challenging for this team is, even when you look at the receivers you have in place, guys like Jordan Matthews and Zay Jones, kids I like, they're not big-time vertical threats down the field. And one thing this offense has had going for it the past couple of years was, at times, that ability to hit the big play down the field with the Sammy Watkins of the world, the Marquise Goodwins of the world. And now those guys are gone. And being Sean McDermott comes from Carolina, he was kind of used to having that in place too for Cam Newton, with a guy like Ted Ginn Jr. on the outside. Where is that guy going to come from in this passing game? Because frankly, as reliant as you're going to be on running the football, and as much as you're going to struggle in general to get a lot of points and make a lot of big plays in the passing game, you need somebody to step up. And I'm not sure that vertical passing option or receiving option is on this team. So I think that's going to be a hindrance, and eventually teams are going to be able to stack the box, and that's going to just compound the problems that this team is going to have in the passing game. I just don't see where it's going to be that much different. In terms of X factors, players to watch on the offensive side of the ball, I look at Zay Jones, the second-round pick from East Carolina, record setter during his 4 years at college. You look at him, and you feel like he's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of opportunities, especially with Tyrod Taylor. He's going to be that reliable kind of, like I compared him during the draft process to a Marty Booker type of guy. Guy that gets 90 to 100 receptions, might only get 1,100 yards. Based off of what I saw in the college film, that's kind of the player he was. But that's okay. Those guys can have nice NFL careers and be a nice third down clutch situation type of guy. It's going to be fascinating to me to see how Zay Jones translates his college production to the NFL level on offense, and especially with Robert Woods gone and the trade of Sammy Watkins, even bringing in Jordan Matthews, you need Zay Jones to be that type of guy on the outside, because Matthews ultimately, again, is best when he's in the slot. On the defensive side of the ball, I look at two defensive players that were taken in 2016, their first two picks, Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland. Ragland's struggling right now. He's battling for a roster spot. Shaq Lawson was your first-round pick in 2016. You need to see more out of him, and hopefully he'll be healthy. But you need to see more out of him, because if you can get something out of Shaq Lawson, and now that you're playing in a 4-3, it's going to be a better systemic fit, in my opinion, for a Shaq Lawson. You need to see if he can be an 8 to 10 sack guy, because if he can be another pass rusher off of the edge, this Bills team could be a real handful to deal with in some games with their ability to get to the quarterback. Looking at this team's schedule and trying to envision kind of how this could all play out for them, I think it really is going to be important for this team to find a way to get off to a good start. Now, granted, they've got the Jets at home at week 1, and that better damn be a win for Sean McDermott. But after that, you go to Carolina. Ooh, what a fascinating matchup week 2. The defensive coordinator goes back to his old team. Then you host Denver. You're at Atlanta, at Cincinnati. 3 of your first 5 are on the road. And then you're talking about playing against teams that you envision at least being on a similar level or better than the Bills in Carolina, Denver, Atlanta, Cincinnati. The Bills have to, it is mandatory in their first 5 games, at least start off 2-3. If they can go 3-2, that's a really good harbinger potentially for the season to come. But they have to go at least 2-3. If they win that first game against the Jets and then lose those next 4, it could potentially be a long struggle and clog of a season for this Bills team. And then you look at week 13 to 15. If they are anywhere in the mix, this is going to be the most critical of stretches for this team, because they've got 3 straight home games: New England, Indianapolis, Miami. So Indianapolis sandwiched in between 2 divisional opponents. And I'm going to put this very simply for the Bills. If you have any thoughts or delusions of being a playoff team this year, wanting to stick around in the playoff race all the way through week 16, week 17, you must beat New England week 13 at home. It is that simple. I don't see any path forward for this Bills team if they don't beat New England at least once. And to me, it has to happen here in Week 13 at home. And nothing worse than 2-1 in this 3-game homestand. And if they can find a way to go 3-0, then you could be potentially talking about a playoff team. Ultimately, I look at this Bills team and I say, even if they find a way, they beat the Jets, and maybe with the emotion of McDermott going back to Carolina, he wants to beat his old team. They start off 2-0. Then they could follow it right back up, losing to Denver, Atlanta, Cincinnati. I envision a bit of a slow start for this Bills team, but maybe they start to find their flow and their rhythm a little bit as the season goes along. But it's kind of hard for me to determine. This is a team switching to a 4-3 defense, back to where their talent is better suited to play, so I think you're going to see some improvement there, but how much are you going to see? And you have lost some key pieces, especially in the secondary. And then on top of that, you look offensively, yeah, you can really run the ball, but what the hell are you going to do in the passing game? And how much confidence do you have in Tyrod Taylor? And if you get to that point where you figure out he's not the answer, how much confidence do you have in Nathan Peterman to be able to step in right away and do something with this offense that Tyrod Taylor can't do? I feel like the Bills are starting to head in the right trajectory. I really do. But I really feel like it's going to come in 2018. I'm sorry, I see this as a 6-10, 7-9 type of team that's going to have to wait another year before they really seriously think about the playoffs. Sorry, Bills fans. Better luck next year. And if not, then you have my permission for once to be able to clown me when your team is in the playoffs this year.